My name is Mary James. I'm from the University of Cambridge for the next 4 months before I retire. And I'm also president of BERA for the next 4 hours until I step down and hand over to Ian. It's been a great privilege to be your president for the last 2 years and to be a vice president for the year before that. And I look forward to working with Ian in the next year as we move into the next phase. So my job today is really quite simple. It's just to welcome you all to this conference and hope that you have a very good conference. One thing that we have been able to guarantee is very good weather, and it's a delightful place to be in good weather. I wanted to say that the University of Sussex means something quite special to me because I've been here before. It's a long time ago, as you can see, because it's black and white. It was before the days of colour photography. And here was I in 1968 receiving my B.Ed degree, all right? Now, I was lucky, I suppose, to be in the very, very first cohort of B.Ed graduates. It was quite special. And it's some sadness now that there aren't many B.Ed courses around. I think there are about 4 actually in the country now. But it was a real opportunity for those young people from perhaps not university families. I was the first in my family to ever be educated after the age of 16. And this was an opportunity to actually get a degree and become a professional and professional teacher. So I was pleased about that. And once in my teaching career, I was appointed to a girls' grammar school to teach English in a girls' grammar school. I didn't have a degree in English, and I was a bit surprised that I was appointed to the post. And the head teacher said the reason was that she saw me as a professional teacher. And there were lots of people in that school at that time who had degrees in subject areas, but they hadn't perhaps got the training that she was looking for as a school moved from a grammar school to a comprehensive school, and a girls' school to a mixed school as well. So this was a special day, and it's really quite nice for me to think that I started my career here, and I sort of closed my career here. It seems to give it closure, which is really rather nice. But I'm not going to say any more because I'm going to ask Professor Brian Hudson to open our conference here. He is the head of the School of Education and Social Work, and we're particularly privileged to invite him to open our conference. And it's with some gratitude that we ask him also. His background is in teacher education, particularly research and development. And so I think it's quite appropriate as we are considering very much the relationship between educational research and teacher education in this current climate. Okay, Brian.
As head of the School of Education and Social Work, I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of the University of Sussex, the school, and in particular on behalf of colleagues in education. I'll keep my comments brief, but would like to offer a few reflections on the background and context against which this conference is taking place. And in particular, I'm reminded of another recent honour when I gave a plenary address to the annual conference of the Scottish Educational and Research Association that was held in Stirling in November 2010. At that conference, I had the privilege of being introduced by my good friend and colleague, our incoming president, Ian Noter. In my address, I offered some reflections on what I saw as the similarities and differences between education systems in Sweden and Scotland, having worked at Umeå University for some years prior to my arrival in Dundee in 2009. In particular, I drew attention to what I see as a distinctive characteristic of the higher education system in Sweden when compared with Scotland. This relates to the way in which the Higher Education Ordinance in Sweden particularly places emphasis on the development of attitudes and values. And that comes through the inclusion of the key intended learning outcomes of värderingsförmåga and förhållningssätt. The concept of värderingsförmåga can be translated as valuability, which indicates a student's ability to identify, reflect upon, and take a position in relation to relevant scientific, societal and ethical aspects. With regard to the concept of Verhaltensset, a really complex and difficult concept to translate, but this concerns values and attitudes and includes the ability to relate to others, including to knowledge itself, through what I can see as the development of a praxis of consideration. However, although such a dimension is not evident in the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, it's very evident in the standard for full registration as a teacher of the General Teaching Council for Scotland, which has a surprisingly close correspondence with the Swedish Higher Education Ordinance. This stresses the role of higher education in teacher education and also places emphasis on professional values and personal commitment, involving particular emphasis on social justice, integrity, trust, respect and professional commitment. In reflecting on my experience of working in the field of education in different national contexts, I see distinctive differences not only in the systems, but also in the ways in which the various partners relate to one another. In the context of Scotland, I would say that the relations between policymakers, practitioners and the academic community can be characterised by respect for each other's opinions, positions, views in general, and also by a strong emphasis on developing partnership, working between these groups. When I reflect on my experience of working in Scotland, I can identify many examples of the demonstration of value stability on the part of various partners, and also a culture that reflects a strong praxis of consideration in general. In reflecting on my more recent experience since joining Sussex in November last year, I'm struck by the unjustifiable general lack of respect on the part of some policymakers and some senior public servants in education for the academic community and its crucial role in teacher education. Furthermore, I see no evidence of valuability or praxis of consideration from this side of the debate. I've also become acutely aware of the impact of the name-calling and the rather sordid political culture surrounding debates about education research and teacher education practice. This very adversarial approach has played out in such a way as to make the job of head of a school of education or a department of education and a university in England at this time all the more difficult. And this is not just because of the policy changes that can be planned for properly, but in particular because of the uncertainty and the undermining of confidence in the future that is created as a result of this unnecessary and what I would describe as seen as a damaging environment of conflict and distrust. So I think this background serves to underline the importance of the work of BERA, underpinned as it is by the Association's ethical guidelines. As the recent BERA briefing on why educational research matters highlights, those working in educational research are well positioned to act as an independent and impartial voice in the production of educational knowledge and understanding. Furthermore, there's a vital role for educational research in a democratic society in challenging, questioning and evaluating existing policy and practice. I see a very rich and varied programme in which colleagues are doing just that. I wish you all a very constructive and enjoyable conference. And thank you for your attention.
There's just two things, but they're very important things for us to do in this particular session, and that is to present some prizes. Every year we have a BERA Doctoral Dissertation Prize, and this year it goes to Stephen Rogers. I've got a list of people here now. Stephen Rogers of the University of Manchester, for an investigation into new Labour education policy, personalisation, young people, schools and modernity. Is Stephen here? Okay, and have we got a prize? Which is the more important thing. Okay, thank you very much. I think we have to have our photographs taken. Okay. Thank you very much, Stephen. There were two other dissertations which, as you see from here, are highly commended. Alison Butler from the Open University on understanding the professional lives of female teachers in rural sub-Saharan African schools, a capability perspective. And highly commended also Peter Dudley from the University of Cambridge, Lessons for Learning, How Teachers Learn in Context of Lesson Study. So let's give them a clap too. What these three illustrate to me is the variety of work that is done by our researchers and our research students in this particular community. So it's pretty wide in terms of geography and discipline as well. The other prize is a new one, and it's a new prize which is being given by Routledge, and therefore I'm going to ask Graham Hobbs, who is the editorial director of Routledge, to come and present this prize. It's for a single study, but it involves a partnership between schools and universities. And this is a particular prize. It's a new one which is awarded by the British Curriculum Foundation in association with BERA and in association with Routledge. The British Curriculum Foundation, you may or may not be aware, has been incorporated into BERA. BERA and the British Curriculum Foundation were more or less set up at the same time in the 70s, really. And they had some of the same people involved. Lawrence Stenhouse was very prominent in this. In fact, at that time, it was called the Association for the Study of the Curriculum. But it has continued to be interested in teachers and university researchers working together, particularly on curriculum development. And although we're incorporating the BCF now fully into BERA, we hope to keep that kind of identity for it and support the work of researchers working directly with schools. And so we invited submissions to this prize, and I think we had 12 submissions. Some of them were really very strong, and there was a cluster of them which were very interesting because they were all in the area, really, I suppose, of working on perhaps invisible groups or migrant groups or disadvantaged groups as well. And so we're hoping that we might actually bring that group of projects together in a kind of symposium where they can share insights both with, between themselves and with a wider community. But we decided in the end to give this particular prize to Dr. Evelyn Arispe, yes, here, and her colleagues in St Martha's Primary School, Glasgow, and the Holy Cross Primary School, Glasgow. And I guess that they're not with us today, are they? But so Evelyn, we're hoping, will take, we have some certificates to give on vellum, or near enough to give to those so that they may actually display those in their schools as well as in Glasgow University. And the title was Journeys from Images to Words, Researchers and Teachers Examine the Efficacy of Visual Meaning-Making Strategies in the Development of Inclusive Communities of Readers. It's a really interesting study. And so Evelyn, who I've known from the past, receives this prize on behalf of herself and her university and these two schools and their teachers. All right.